Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. I'm your host, Paul Sanneman. I'm founder of Contractor Staffing Source, where we help contractors build great teams. Matthew Smith is my guest today from Truss Payments. And okay, give me your little backstory. How did you get in Truss Payments and what do they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, my background's in software engineering actually, and Trust Payments, we're building a better bank for construction companies. So there's a lot to unpack in that. But yeah, I started in software engineering, and actually most of my friends are all kind of construction guys. So a lot of them, the joke was that I was the only one that went to university out of my high school friends, and they all went and started in the trades, and I went and studied computer science. And they used to make fun of me for my soft hands, but I guess I'm banking them all now. So
There you
I don't
go.
know if
That's right. I
I don't
mean,
know if the
I'm
joke
looking
switched
at,
around.
you know, one of my sons became an electrician, right? My dad was an electrician, so I understand that whole trade thing. Um, so tell me, Matthew, what is, trust payments do? I mean, I think of a bank, I think of like Chase and more of these big institutions. So what
Yeah.
is trust payments? It was like a way to access those, or how does it work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we do everything the traditional bank would do. So we have a deposit account with FDIC insurance. We issue check. You can get a trust checkbook. And the big difference is what we've done is we've combined the digital payment systems with your banking. So right now, like let's say you wanted to, collect ACH and credit card payments in pretty much almost all cases, you'd have to have your bank account and then you have to go to some provider of those services. So let's say, you're using Square or you're using job treads. I like job tread, but let's say you're using their embedded payment system
Or is
and
PayPal, Quant, the same kind of thing?
or PayPal, whatever. You're going to use a separate payment system than your bank. And so when you do that, there's a pricing shift. And what that means is that if you're doing your banking from a different place of where you're processing transactions, the payments are going to be slower, they're going to be more expensive, it's going to be a different type of experience. And there's a lot of little nuances there, but the gist of it is that at Trust, you get a bank account with all of the receivables and payable stuff built into the system so that we do instant settlement on all your incoming transactions. So what does that mean? If I'm collecting an ACH or a credit card on our checkout system, which is all integrated into QuickBooks, and you can collect that payment, customer pays, you get instant access to the funds within our accounts. And so because we've combined that payment system with the bank, we're able to do things that you normally wouldn't do at your regular bank, right? Like if I have my Bank of America account, I'm just depositing checks, right? I'm just taking
Right.
checks and I'm depositing checks. Maybe I'm using Square, or maybe I'm using some built-in payment system, but the payment gets processed outside of Bank of America and then deposited as this lump sum
Right.
deposit inside of that account. And,
Right.
we could get into some of the reconciliation issues, but a lot of it is like, if I'm collecting 10 payments in a day, that all arrives in my Bank of America account as like a big lump sum. And I have to then reconcile that. And a lot of the business owners, they don't have to deal with that directly. The bookkeeper's dealing with that, but it takes a lot of time. Whereas with Trust, all of our transactions come in as these individual transactions. So, in QuickBooks, we have an integration, but you can just click match next to the payment that's coming in. And that's it. It's like a more seamless way of doing your transactions. Yeah, that would be like a top, maybe like the
Well,
top
I'm trying
level,
to
some of the
understand this
benefits,
because,
but
well, I'm used to is you work with PayPal or somebody, and then they deposit it, they do all the transaction, and then you go from that and you transfer it to JP Morgan or some bank, right?
yeah,
And that's pretty much typical. And so everybody has a bank, and then they have some method of collecting money, and then they have an accounting system. They're all separate, right? They've got
yeah,
QuickBooks does their books. Square D or somebody where they take the cards, takes the cards, they usually charge like 3%, give or take. And
yeah.
then that deposits it to your bank, right? So what you're saying is you sort of put those together?
We've combined those things. We don't do any of the accounting. We don't do any of the project management and we don't do any of the accounting. We're just doing the payments and banking. And so that means that Trust, you can get a trust account, you can get a checkbook, you can print checks from our account. It's like a regular bank account. You can get our cards. We have staff cards and expense management program. You can pay your bills, you can collect money, and you can use all of the kind of new tools, like the digital tools that you would see inside of something like Square, without having to go get a Square subscription or like,
So
pay
you must
Square.
have some bank behind you, right? You must have some bank
Of
like,
course. Of course.
I didn't
Yes.
think
So
of
we have
that
a
way. It could be a bank, right? So
no,
you,
no, 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 no. So we have a sponsor bank. So we sit on top of a bank and we basically piggyback on their license. And that's how we're able to give clients bank accounts when they sign up. But everything, aside from the underlying partner, everything is normal as opposed, when it comes to banking. We have the regular account, the account routing, we actually have enhanced FDIC insurance. We have 3 million of FDIC insurance as opposed to your regular 250.
now I assume your bank is a big bank. They don't have to worry about going under, right? Your foundation bank is a big bank.
No, you don't have to worry about that. And because of the FDIC insurance, there's no risk when it comes to like holding, it's funny, clients with a lot of deposits, they ask me that and I said, well, yeah, like, look, we have 3 million of FDIC insurance. If you're uncomfortable, then don't keep more than 3 million in the account, and you're good.
Most people listening to this podcast wish they had 3 million in their account, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
The problem they would
I
like
don't say
to
that.
have.
It's a good problem to have. I don't say that to them, Paul, but basically, if I'm being honest, we do have clients that have that level of deposits. And most of them, they're not keeping more than that amount of money in the account. And today we're kind of seen as like the operating account for your construction business, right?
Okay.
So one of the, I mean, I would say one of the big flows is that instead of, collecting money with one system, waiting for it to deposit, then having to write out checks with another system, you can do it all in one place. You can collect your money, it settles instantly into your trust account. You can then pay your bills from our system, and you can send a check. We actually print and mail the checks for you if you want. You can send an ACH or you can send a payment link to your subcontractors, and then they can get an instant payment
Okay.
to them as well.
Now, most people listening to this podcast are small. They're between, say, 1 million a year and 20 million a year.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who's like two guys in a truck that's too small to consider the services? You like to have a certain minimum amount you have to do?
No, not at all, actually. Actually, our my favorite customers are the small guys. So, because they tend to use everything in the system. So, the smaller companies using us, like you could be two guys in a truck and using Truss to collect payments, use our expense cards, pay your subcontractors or pay yourselves if you need to. So there's no limit here. And in fact, we kind of have a bit of a network effect built into the system where when you pay people, they can sign up for a Truss account to get access to those funds. So think of us as like a Venmo or Cash App, but just for the construction industry.
So let's say your subcontractors assigned to sign up for it, then you can pay them all through the same system, right?
Yeah, it's an instant. It just means the only difference would be that the transaction is faster. So it would be an instant payment as opposed to like a one business day clearing or a same day ACH kind of thing, right? So let's say I'm paying my subcontractor $1,000, he'll have the option if he wants to get a check mailed to him, get an ACH, he can get an instant withdrawal on his debit card, or he can get a trust account. And so what our clients tell us is that after they start using this, the flexibility is all built into the system, right? All those when you're paying someone, you have so many options of how you want to pay them
Right,
that
because
it
I
becomes
got,
less
well,
of a hassle.
you want PayPal to call, you want my bank to, you want to do an ACH.
Yeah,
ACHs get confusing, depends on the bank, and the bank's on the other
yeah,
ACH. Some people don't like ACHs, some people don't. I know,
of
we
course.
collect a
Yeah,
couple million a year and it's very confusing. It's like, come on.
exactly.
Right.
And not only that, in our system, all of the transactions, like if you go into your Chase account or your Bank of America, you click on a transaction, you can't like add more information to it for your accountant, right?
Right.
Or like, whereas with our system, every transaction has extra information that you can
So it's
add
sort
to
of
it.
like on a credit card. When you do a credit card, new transaction, it has all the information on it, same kind of thing, right?
Yeah, but you can add extra after the fact. So you can add memos and notes for your team or your accountant after the fact. So imagine, you've got your bookkeeper coming at the end of the month, or for some people, the end of the year, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. As you're using the system, you can just add notes along the way so that, the bookkeeper, when they come in and do their thing and they check it and they're looking in your account to get the data, it's really easy for them.
Well, this is bound to lower your bookkeeping expenses, I would think.
100%. Yeah. And I think it's a weird place to be in the market because we're not the job treads or the project management softwares, and we're not necessarily just the payment processor. It's a combination of those things. And so a lot of the clients that we talk to, especially when we're doing sales, they say, oh, I don't use any online payments. I just take checks, because there's so much hassle in the way that those online payment systems work that a lot of people
Right.
gave up on them a while ago.
Right.
And so, we're coming in with basically a 0 to 1 or a brand new way of doing it, that is only for construction. So it's built specifically for companies in construction.
No, you have to be, you can't be relate to a construction. You have to physically be a construction company, right? You can't
Yes, you
be
have
like
to be a
you
construction
can't be
company.
like a, I don't know, architecture company that works at construction companies or,
We do work with architecture firms, actually, yes. So you can be construction adjacent, but it's primarily like you're not going to see the same value as a construction company is because things like our payment portal where we have like unlimited ACH and you're passing on we have this system where you can automatically pass on the credit card fees to the client paying. There's certain types of things in the way it's built that's you're only gonna see value as a construction company.
okay.
Yeah.
So everything costs money. What does this cost?
Yeah, so we actually don't charge. I mean, we make money the way a bank makes money. So it doesn't cost construction companies anything. Our clients using us are actually making money on us because they can use our card, right? So we have 1 to 2% cash back on the card, depending on how much you spend a year. And so but using Trust, you can actually make money. So it doesn't cost you anything. People go, oh, well, how do you make money? It's like, well, do you think the banks are not making any money? Of course
Well,
they're
no, I
making
mean,
money.
for example,
Yeah.
I look at my PayPal. It's like I pay them like picking. I think it's 9,000 a month, some stupid number,
Yeah.
right? Because it ends up
Yeah.
being 3% of 180,000 whatever you're running through the checking account a month. And
Yeah.
that's like 8 or 9. It's like 90,000, $100,000 a year I pay those guys, right?
Yeah. So basically what we figured out is that you can pass on the fees to your client, the credit card fees. And I know a lot of people are gonna say, no, you can't do that. Or even some people say it's illegal, which is actually not true. So you can actually pass on the fees to your client as a convenience fee on the checkout system. There's a couple of stipulations for this. One, you have to be in an industry where credit cards are not normally accepted. Construction falls under that category. And two, you have to have a free alternative on the checkout system, which we do. You can do a free bank transfer or a check.
So
You can
you
give
can
them a check.
say, because lots of people, other industries said, okay, you can pay with a credit card. It's going to cost you 3% more. You can ACH and it's free or whatever.
Correct. But with our system, you don't even have to have that conversation. You actually don't have to have that conversation. That is all forgotten about. You include the Trust checkout link on your invoices. Client clicks on that link to pay, and they can figure it out for themselves. They can split half the payment on credit card and half the payment on ACH, or they can pay the whole thing on ACH or pay the whole thing on card. Doesn't matter to you. You get all your money as a lump. You get your
And how
money
hard is
all
it?
as it comes in.
Because sometimes ACH is sort of a pain in the butt. I mean, because you got to fill these forms. How hard is that? Because ACH, you have to go
We
there's a lot of paperwork in doing an ACH transaction
There's
versus
zero paper. There's zero paperwork for ACH. So you do. If anyone listening has ever used Venmo or Cash App, which I'm sure you have,
right. Yes.
when you connect your bank account to those systems, we use the exact same tool. It's called Plaid. And on the checkout, somebody can go put in their bank routing and get a micro deposit to verify their bank account, and we do the transaction, or they can just log into their bank. I know some people are uncomfortable with that, so that's why you can do the manual enter with the micro deposits. And we just authorize the account and we charge the account. It's super easy. Yeah.
So it's sort of like using Venmo, for lack of a better term.
It is. And when it comes to like a business tool, it's much easier. Yeah. Like, Venmo is built for consumers and
Well,
Zelle
Venmo
is
has a
built for
bunch of limits. You
consumers.
can't pay more than
Yeah.
$10,000 and all. There's a bunch of
And the
stuff.
same thing with Zelle. We sign up a lot of clients from Zelle. Like I remember, I don't know if it was a few months ago, but talking to a client, he was doing Zelle payments. And let's say he had a $20,000 invoice. Sometimes he'd take like 10 Zelle payments to do
Right. I mean,
like,
it's okay for anything under
2,000 a
like
day
10
or
grand.
something.
Right. It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're collecting money like that, and if you flip it around and you're paying your bills, Zelle is not really a scalable way to like collect and pay your bills as a
No.
business. It kind of works, but on the accounting side and on the tracking side, it's not very scalable. It doesn't work very well. It might be working okay right now, but if you're listening to this podcast, you probably want to grow your business. And those types of tools like Zelle and these consumer-oriented systems are not going to serve you as you try and grow your business. You're going to need something like Trust to solve that.
Okay. Do you have any competition out there? Just curious.
So we compete with certain aspects of the application, but we don't have a direct competitor. So our biggest competitor are like the regular banks, like a Bank of America or Chase, and then certain aspects of the application, like the checkout system, would be competitive with like QuickBooks payments or
Right.
I think JobTread and Buildertrend have their own built-in
Right.
payment systems. But again, our system is always going to be better because we're directly depositing the
That's
money
what
into
you're
a bank
doing. Yeah.
account.
Right.
Yeah. So, it, yeah, there's no system that does everything we do, but there's pieces of it, right? So,
Now, what if a creditor, somebody said, well, I've never heard of, who is Trust Bank? Because when you get Bank of America, JP Morgan, like pick a big bank, but sometimes you get, ABC Bodunk Bank out of Toledo, Ohio or something. Go, who are those guys, right? So,
yeah.
um, how do you deal with credibility issues? Do they even show up as far as being a bank?
It's taken years. Yeah. So, we launched in December 2022, and it's taken years of just building credibility. We've been working with the Build Show recently. Like Jake Brutton's company is using Truss for the last kind of 6 months, and so he's done like basically, hey, he's actually used the system. So we do sponsorships with people like that where they test out the system and they vet it, and then they can actually post and say, hey, I'm using this thing, it's legit. But it takes time to build that credibility and that trust, especially in construction when you're dealing with people's money. You do have to build that trust. And so, yeah, it's taking us time, but so far so good. And it will take years to build up trust with people, obviously.
So what happens if a client for some reason says, no, I don't know these guys, I don't want to send them $20,000 or $50,000. Can they have got an alternative at their old bank or something? Can they do something other than use their choice?
What do you mean by that?
Well, let's say you send somebody a bill for $30,000 and they go
Like
try,
you're using it, like you have a trust account and you send an
yeah, and you're
invoice for
using that
30,000.
and they're going, I just watched a podcast on hacking software or something. They're all paranoid,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And they go,
Okay.
I haven't heard of these guys. They're not one of the top five banks. Can I pay somebody else? Can I write a check? Or, is there any alternative to that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You can just take a check. We have mobile check deposit. Like I said, we do everything the regular bank does. Like you can take a check and just do mobile check deposit. In fact, one of the advantages of our mobile check deposit is that you can give access to your field staff to deposit checks in the field without them having access to your full bank account, which you cannot do with like Chase and Bank of America.
Right,
So imagine you're serving a larger geographical area, and a lot of these guys have guys in the field where they have to pick up checks in the field and then bring them
right,
back into the office at the end of the day to
right.
be processed. What you can do with our system is you can give them access as a sales rep, and they can do mobile check deposits in the field. So that way your money is
So what
processing faster.
happens
So
is that they're putting in an HVAC system or where they put in, they collect the money on the spot. They have something on their phone or whatever. They can just
oh
deposit
yeah,
on their phone directly into the bank versus mailing it back or driving
yeah.
it back or
And you
something.
can collect a credit card you can collect a credit card in the field too. You can charge a client's card in the field too. So your sales reps can charge a client's card, or they can take a mobile check deposit. We don't have the terminals yet. We're still working on the terminals. But you can just manually enter the person's card number on the spot and charge it.
Okay, cool. So if people are interested in doing this, it sounds interesting to me. How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can head to our website, trustpayments.com, and they can just sign up from the website. It's all kind of online. You can sign up with an application, or if you want to talk to somebody, like someone on our team, you can just book a demo right from our website. So trustpayments.com, it's like a roof truss, not trust, but like a roof truss, like TRUSS, payments.com. And you'll see all the information there. You can click sign up and check us out.
So how long does it take to get started and how long does it take to transition from like you're using Squarespace and B of A or something?
Oh, I mean, you can do it in a day. And application approvals are typically 24 hours or less. Business days. So like on the weekend, if you sign up on the weekend, it's probably going to get processed on Monday. And you're up into the races. Like you can think of this with us, you're not necessarily right away replacing anything. You're opening another bank account. So I mean, many people have multiple bank accounts. And so what makes the sales process easier for us is that it's like, well, you can have multiple accounts. It doesn't hurt to have a second bank account,
So they could
right? You
try
could,
you out, see how it works, and then
yeah,
transfer over time. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And what
That's
we
good.
see happens obviously is they try us out and then it just starts ramping up over time of like,
Right.
okay, so yeah, I mean, if
And
you're
there's no
curious,
there's no big credit approval. I mean, you have to have decent credit, I'm assuming, to
no,
get.
we do not do credit checks on the businesses. Yeah, so there's
Really?
no credit check approval. Yeah, and we don't currently have a credit card. What we have is a charge card, and the charge card is based on what your balance in our accounts is. So you can spend whatever you have in the accounts, and it's not a debit card because it still acts like a credit card. but it's based on like a secured balance in the account. You don't have to hold or pre-fund or anything. It's just based on how much you're processing in the accounts with us, as opposed to like a traditional credit check.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Matthew. It sounds good. I mean, I think people should try this out because you've all had frustrations with money. I think
Yeah.
this is a good alternative. So thank you, Matthew. Appreciate being here.
Appreciate that.
Go to trustpayments.com and check it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.